Oh man, guys. If you thought the zombies or aliens of the horror genre were the most terrifying thing you could possibly experience in gaming, or you've seen all of those videos out there saying DCS is a horror game, I'm here to tell you, you haven't seen nothing yet. Because I'm here to tell you, the most pulse-pounding, sweat-inducing, and terrifying experience you can possibly have in gaming is landing the WW2 F4U-1D Corsair from Magnitude 3 aboard a straight-deck Essex-class carrier, where every move you make on the controls and every minuscule movement of the throttle threatens to spin you into the beautiful blue of the western Pacific Ocean, smack you into the fantail of the ship, careen you into parked aircraft on the straight-decked carrier, or plow you into the island. After spending this morning trying to smash my Corsair into the deck of an Essex-class carrier before her SCB-125 conversion, it's left me drenched in sweat, goosebumps all over my body, my arms and legs cramped up on the controls, and a newfound love of and sense of respect and awe for the pioneers of naval aviation. It's a miracle to me that naval aviation ever made it out of the prototype stage, let alone the end of the Second World War, and I can't believe anyone made it out alive to tell the tale. There's no experience to be found anywhere in gaming or flight simulators like this. And in my opinion, this amazing and eye-opening challenge is reason enough to buy Mag3's F4U-1D Corsair. But I guess we better go over the rest of the airplane and the rest of the package. But I first have to acknowledge the crazy amount of hard work of the developers here. The DCS F4U has taken nearly 8 years of development work. It took WW2 a little over 2 years, from the drawing board to first flight. So huge kudos to Magnitude 3 for your absolutely monumental effort here. However, there are definitely pros and cons to Mag3's beautiful rendition of the Corsair. And after spending the morning playing around with and flying her around the spectacular World War II rendition of the Mariana Islands map from Eagle Dynamics, I think I have a pretty good handle on the ins and outs of the aircraft and the piece of software that she is. Because there are so many positives about this aircraft and the experience she brings to the table, let's start out with the worst negative of this module: the sounds and the sound design. And this is really the most subjective part of the model for most players, and what I believe is the most challenging aspect to module development, at least from what I've seen and heard from DCS devs. The sounds of the Corsair, at least to me, feel flat and dull, and take away from the amazing experience she provides us, especially during takeoff, in combat, and around the boat. I find that the sounds are more or less okay on startup, with the Malcolm hood of our canopy slid back, but I really hope we get to see some more depth, bass, and really just gravitas to the sounds of this module. And moving into the startup procedure, I can say for certain, yep, it's a temperamental radial-engined aircraft. There's a reason the US Army Air Forces and subsequent US Air Force ran away from radial-engined airplanes as fast as they possibly could. She's temperamental on startup for sure, far more so than the Eagle Dynamics P-47D Thunderbolt, also powered by the huge Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine. And in this case, that is a very good thing. She's gonna have you wishing you had 3, maybe even 4 hands to zip around the cockpit and her myriad of switches and levers as you baby the old Double Wasp to life. And a little more oomph to the sounds could make this experience even more awesome. And while Magnitude 3's Early Access Manual looks awesome from an art perspective and really conveys a cartoon-filled wartime manual, some of the procedures in there I believe have a few errors. And just using the real VOT F4U-1D flight manual, linked in the comments down below, will make your life a lot easier when it comes to learning this infamous aircraft, in my humble opinion. And I really hope this comment doesn't make the devs feel bad, because that is not my intent here. When it comes to the flight model of the F4U-1D, at first I was a little suspect. She felt a little weightless. And that feeling really isn't helped by the tinny and shallow sound suite of the aircraft. And I was a little bit worried about the flight model going into it. But once I got the aircraft loaded up with a full load of fuel, bombs, and high-velocity aerial rockets, the flight model became much more weighty and sluggish, which gave me a boost of confidence in the authenticity of this module. And of course, I also had to remind myself that the heaviest gross weight of an F4U-1D Corsair is going to be around 14,000-ish pounds, whereas the P-47D tops out at over 17,500 pounds, with more or less the same Double Wasp engine, which of course accounts for the increased performance of our Corsair over the Thunderbolt, and her increased snappiness. However, at lower gross weights, I think that Magnitude 3 could make her feel a little more weighty, and again, the sound effects here would probably help with that feeling. When it comes to the implementation of the R2800 Double Wasp in our Corsair, so far, I haven't been able to blow her up, despite some pretty heavy abuse. And it was noted in the DCS World changelogs that the oil and engine temperature dynamics are still a work in progress. And I believe this was the same for the initial early access release of the P-47D. But it might give us poor DCS pilots a little bit of a reprieve, so we can just learn how to fly this bucket without having to worry about shooting the pistons out of the cowling. Now, the biggest shining city on the hill for the Corsair module is definitely the artwork. This airplane is absolutely gorgeous. Every piece of the cockpit was given what was obviously a ton of love from the developers, and the same can definitely be said for the outside of the airplane. However, I do wish that the head and body movement with VR headsets and track IR was a little bit less restrictive, because the placement of various instruments in the cockpit of the Corsair really lends to having the ability to strain your neck down to check your engine temperatures or to charge your guns. But she is really gorgeous, and probably the best looking warbird we have in DCS at the moment, in my opinion. And on top of that, Magnitude gave us not one, but two Corsairs for the price of one. A US Navy and Marine Corps bog standard F4U-1D Corsair, and the Corsair Mark IV, used by the Fleet Air Arm and some Commonwealth Air Forces. The biggest difference being the wings of the FAA Corsair were clipped slightly for use aboard smaller British carriers, and at least in theory should have a slightly higher roll rate as a result, but I haven't gotten around to test this yet, so please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And Magnitude 3 has addressed my biggest gripe with most DCS aircraft releases in spades, by giving us tons of skins, representing a host of Corsair models and eras, which definitely makes me happy. Along with a number of Japanese ground units to place around the new World War II rendition of the Mariana Islands map, and while not created by Mag 3, the new map looks and feels fantastic, And Eagle Dynamics devs, if you guys are watching, I know you have said in the past that you can't do a Vietnam map yet because you haven't developed triple jungle canopy technology yet, but if you guys developed a Vietnam/Southeast Asia map that looks like this, the community would love you guys forever and you'd make a bazillion dollars. But as it stands now, there is a bit of a dearth in the available Pacific Theater World War II assets. But hopefully more will be coming soon, as we definitely need a Zero to shoot at. And normally I would be really worried about that, but the Corsair's service life didn't end in the island hopping campaign of the South Pacific, and she would be right at home on the Kola Peninsula map hunting the Kriegsmarine, or the Sinai map trying to reclaim the Suez Canal from Nasser's Arab nationalists and trying to claw back the British Empire, to a football war reenactment over the South Atlantic map. So guys, what's the bottom line when it comes to the VOT F4U-1D Corsair from Magnitude 3? There are definitely pros and cons, as we've discussed. But if you are a World War II or Cold War fanatic like me, or you're looking for the hardest and scariest challenge that DCS World has to offer, then this module is an insta-buy. And I will finish up here with a huge congratulations and thank you to Magnitude 3. I am sure it must be such a massive relief to have crossed the finish line and get the Corsair out the door and into early access after nearly 8 years of development work. So I hope this video helps you guys make your decision on the Corsair, but man, so far, I'm hooked, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for DCS World War II, as this release finally gives me hope for a future where DCS World War II is viable.